Friends of Blackwater presents Early Mining Voices, a community history and heritage program. What was life like for coal mining families in West Virginia 100 years ago? Let's find out. Our story starts in 1967, when a young historian named John Staley tape-recorded interviews with more than 70 retired coal miners and their families. The miners had worked underground in the earliest days of coal mining, the hand-loading era from the late 1800s to the 1930s. Some of the miners who Staley interviewed were as young as age 12 when they began working underground. Some miners came from local communities, others were immigrants from Europe or other U.S. regions. The miners and their families talked with Staley about daily life in mining communities and the difficulties and rewards of their work lives. Their stories are often dramatic and touching. For more than 50 years, these rare recordings have been stored in an archive, unheard and unknown. But today, the interviews are being transcribed by students at West Virginia University and made available to scholars, the miners' descendants, and the public at large. In 2024, at a program at Blackwater Falls State Park in Tucker County, West Virginia, community members read from the transcripts of Staley's 1967 interviews and celebrated these mining pioneers. It has been an honor to help tell the early mining families' stories. Thanks for watching this program.
Good afternoon. I'm Kat Harless, a student at West Virginia University. I want to introduce our first panel of recreated early mining voices. I will ask our panelists some questions now. Let's begin by welcoming Mr. Patsy Ballasone and Mrs. Julia Ballasone. Mr. Ballasone, we will start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and personal history?
I was born in Italy. I came to America on September 15th, 1907, when I was 8 years old. My dad had come to America first in 1901. Then he brought us home. He raised our family in Douglas. There were 6 boys, 2 girls. One of my sisters and I were born in Italy, and the rest right here in Douglas.
And how about you, Mrs. Ballasone? What's your family history?
My father, Nick Lambrullo, is from the Italy. He went to Pittsburgh and then walked all the way to Thomas in 1896. He got a mining job and sent for my mama, and then they got back again. And when my dad and the others first came, they went to the office to get jobs, but they were only asked their first names. The company name were last names because they could not pronounce our American name. My dad's name was changed to Lehman. Can you imagine? Lehman. They couldn't say that word.
Mr. Elsie, what is your history?
I was born in Randolph County, South Carolina. My father worked in the Elizabeth. I moved to Point Marion to the lumber industry. When I got tired of that work and started mining, it was the only work I ever liked.
And Mr. Schaefer, where are you from?
I am originally from St. George, Tucker County. My father worked the carpenter, being farm. He built pretty near every building in town in town farms here. I ran a modeling shop and a place just as I could go to the mines to work home, because the machines were similar.
Let's talk a bit about when you started in the mines, Mr. Ballasone.
When I came over from the old country, I could not speak English. I was sent to school. They would speak to me, but I could not understand. There was another particular Italian boy who asked me in Italian why I was not answering the teacher. All I could say was, I don't I had only been there a few days. And the teacher, he treated me black and blue. He went to the office and they told them that if they did not do something about it, he was going to go and have the man arrested. The man was taken away, and I never went to school again. I started in the mines at Cumberland Fort in March of 1912. I was 10 and a half years old. I went to the mines with my dad. We loaded coal. I got what's called a half turn. Meaning, Dad and I had our 2 cars to load, and I had a 1. That was paid 45 cents per car, and I got 4 cents. My brothers, all but 1, went into the mine.
And Mr. Elsie, what about you?
I started mining at the age of 19. My first job was hand loading coal. There's about 80 to 90 men working, worked 7 days a week. I was paid 63 cents per ton loaded. I worked there for 7 years. Still, my body was still inside. Then I worked as a cook for hotels and camps. I went back to coal mining in 1942 in Benbush. That was Davis Coal and Coke. There was about 150 men working there. I stayed there about 19 years.
And Mr. Schaefer, when did you start working in the mines?
I started in the mines in 1904 when I was 15 years old. My first job was a pumping boy. And I had to pump the water out of the mine so that it was ready for the mines to work their shift in the morning. I would work 13-hour night shifts and make $1.30 per shift. Work was good until the Depression, when I was working only 3 days a week.
What do you all recall about unionization and labor strikes? Mr. Balasone, can we start with you?
We first got the union during World War I in 1917 or 18 time period. In getting the union, we all went to promise to the Bullets Cow Stick and to the old schoolhouse. We had to speak into our domain. The majority of the miners joined the union, and the company didn't say too much about it because they were selling large of coal. It was special coal, Freeport coal. It was put in 200-pound bags, stacked, loaded onto the boxcars, and shipped to Canada. Around the 1920s, the company did try to break the coal. They tried to starve everyone out. It was a terrible time. My dad and I had to go get a permit to cut the grass in the school. One time, on the way home, the state police came and said we were not allowed to be together and not allowed to be taught. My dad asked why a father and a son cannot walk together. The police said it was the law and you have to be separate. And so we were. That was the way it was. You couldn't talk back. 9 months we were off and we were down 15 months.
What happened to the strikers after that?
People were arrested for trespassing on the company ball field. They were loaded into an all-time pad and it was hooked up to the hind end of the passenger train. The train went about 9 miles when the wheel busted and the pad went over the hill. One man was killed, several were crippled up. We ran down because they had burned it all up. Destroyed the evidence. There was nothing left. We went back to work non-union. You did not have to do that, but people had 6 or 7 children. Wages went down. During the 1920s, I ran a boiler for 32 cents an hour. When the 1920s, the workers was not there every day. They picked up. After the depression, the union came back after the presidency. People sick, they stayed their union dues all through the 1920s.
Mrs. Balasone, do you remember the things that your husband just spoke about?
Yes, I do. During the strike of 1922, the company brought in workers to replace the miners. But as soon as they found out why they were brought in, most just left. I remember we would go out on the porch when the workers would go walking by to work. As they were passing, we would yell, "Scabs! Scabs! Scabs!" The strike was 9 months of no work. All the union gave us beans and bacon, but it was so bad, you could barely eat it.
Mr. Elsie, what do you recall of these strikes?
After my first 2 years at Point Mary with miners unionized, there was a 6-month strike, but the mine kept on running. We had a couple strikes during my time in Tucker County, and I was in the strike in 1945.
What about you, Mr. Schaefer? What experience did you have with strikes?
I was a union organizer here and was one of the first to join the union, and the company fired me for talking. I remember the train wreck and the death that Mr. Balasone talked about. After the strike, the company started the Yellow Dog organization, which was a company union. I never joined it. Some of us kept secretly paying our union dues. A group of us broke up the Yellow Dog organization in the 30s. When we got the union back, we got an 8-hour shift back instead of 10.
And how did mining change over time, Mr. Balasone?
The government company had about 6 mine openings and ran 700 to 800 tons of coal a day. That was all hand loaded. There was no machine. They got some motors in about the 1910s, but only electrified the main line. In the 1940s, my work picked up and the war made it boom. Then in 56 or 57, the company sold everything to a strip club.
I'd like to move into some everyday life matters now. Yes, Mrs. Balasone?
I just want to add that in the early days, everybody had boarders because there was no place to go. There were boarding houses, but it did not have as many boarders as my mom's or Patsy's home. In the boarding house, they slept 8 in a sleeping room. But there were so many working there that there was not enough room for all. So my mom's people from the old country, almost every nation, brothers, cousins, people from all over, from the same small town, all came and wanted to stay with her. So it was a little extra money.
What about healthcare, Mrs. Balasone?
Oh, we paid $1 a month for the company doctor, and that was for every day. Every little mining town had its own company doctor.
And Mr. Balasone, what about the company stores and script?
There was a company store that carried about anything you want. The prices were really high. They didn't want you buying elsewhere and forced people to buy from the company store. The company used script. A little piece of paper with numbers on it. They would punch it off the use.
There's a big B&L in Tucker County. The company stores, Davis, Pierce, and Kempton. The stores took the script the company paid us. We were only supposed to buy from the company store.
That was sold to Thomas. The company store to Peter after the country went ethnic. He sold it out of here. A bunch of them Thomas Dragon Woodcock company store in Douglas because it sold beer cheap. Beer was 20 cents in Douglas. In Thomas, the beer was at 25 cents. It was a really big issue. Everyone came to Douglas to buy a case of beer. It was a good beer. You came, silver top and red.
And I think we will conclude our session there. Thank you all so much.
All right, let's call up our second panel of Patsy Greco, Charles Nichols, Charlie Losh, and Peter Bomber.
Make sure that mic is turned on.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Lucas Davis, a West Virginia University history student. Let's welcome our second panel. First, Mr. Patsy Greco.
I am Patsy Greco. When I was 13 years old. 2 of my brothers were already here, and 2 more stayed in the old country. I came into New York and went on to Fruit, Pennsylvania, to work on the railroad. I was just a water boy. In 1908, I came to Thomas because I had an uncle down here. They sent men to recruit us from Thomas. At first, I didn't want to because I'd heard bad things about Virginia. But I didn't realize West Virginia was different. They told me it was different because people in Thomas were civilized. So I came.
Mr. Losh, what about you?
My parents were from Thomas. My dad worked as a farmer and a miner. He'd farm in the summertime and mine in the winter.
And you, Mr. Nichols?
My father came from Lithuania in 1885. I started in the mines at 12 years old at Thomas.
And Reverend Barmer, what is your background?
I was born in Jackson, North Carolina. I came to Davis on August 9th, 1903. I was working in Virginia on the railroad, and a man I was working for became superintendent in Davis for Beacon Coal and Coke. He gathered a bunch of men and paid our transportation. 16 other colored men came with me. There used to be over 100 colored people here in Davis. Now, I'm the only colored family in Davis.
Can you each tell me about starting work in the mines? Shall we start with you, Mr. Greco?
I started to work cleaning up coke ovens and loading boxcars. I was paid $1.40 a day for 10 hours work. We worked 6 days a week. My boss sent me to Coketon. They had 200 men working there. They used horses in the mine. The engines came in around 1910, 11, or 12. They called me a grease monkey because my job was to grease on the cars.
Did you work underground?
Yes. Yes. I had a friend who was a mine engineer. I told him I wanted to work in the mines to dig coal. He said I could if I found a buddy to go in with me. You weren't allowed to go in alone. You had to go in 6 months underground with another miner before you could go alone. I knew a fellow who was a boarder in the same house that I was in, and I asked him to take me underground. He was making $3 to $5 a day. I had to work a week to make that much. I told him I'd work for free the first few days. If he didn't think I could do the work, I would just quit. Our boarding house convinced me to take me. Well, we dug coal and I loaded the car. Sometimes I make some smart comment like, Come and load some coal and work. He got mad at me and said, give me that shovel. You be the picker. So I started to dig, and he grabbed a pick and started working. And you know that I heard the top working, and I think something was gonna fall. He grabbed the pick, started working, and it fell right in on him. He was trapped, but not dead. He had to have several of them fellas lift up the rock. Had it been high, it would have killed him. But the face was only 3 foot. He quit. The boss said I could come back and I could work with mules. So I did.
And Mr. Losh, what can you tell us about your work in the mines?
I started working in the mines in 1914 when I was 14 years old. I worked as a chaser and would help drive the mules with the loaded coal outside of the mine. I worked long hours, usually for 11 or 12, and I made $1.10 a day. I worked at Benbush until about 1929 when my father went to work over at Pierce. I followed him. I hand-loaded coal. I got paid 28 cents per ton of coal, and I handpicked that I had handpicked. About 100 people worked there. We had to buy all our tools from the company store. Most of the miners were from Italy, Croatia, Poland, Russia, and many other places.
And you, Mr. Nichols?
Well, I started in the mines about 1903. At 12 years old, down at Thomas, I drove mules. You had to harness your mule and work all day. And every evening, you had to unharness. Next, I went to loading coal. It was more money, but you had to buy your own powder and tools yourself. I worked as a loader until the 1930s. During the war, you could make $3 or $4 a day by working a double, if you could stand it. Now, in 1907, there was an explosion in mine number 25 that killed 25 men. The fan hadn't run for a couple of days. The fire boss was late getting in one morning. The men went in ahead of him, and it blew up.
And what about you, Reverend Barmer?
I started in the mines when I came to Davis in 1903. When I was 18 years old, my first job was to load coal. I was paid $2 a day for 10 hours. If there was coal enough to load, we loaded 8 coals a car. That was a day's work for 4 men. I worked for Beacon Coal and Coke from 1903 up to 1908 when the mine closed down. In 1912, I went back to the mines until I retired in April 15, 1950. I liked working the mines better than any other place I worked. I loved the work of loading coal.
Can you tell me anything about union and labor issues? Let's start with Mr. Greco.
Yeah, during the First World War, we didn't have a union. If we had issues, we'd just go to the mine inspector. But he rarely did anything about it. In 1916, the first union came in, but they broke it. It came again, and they broke it again in 1922. That's when they arrested some of the men, and they put them in chicken wire cages. They loaded them on a train. It went off the track, and one man died, and the others were tear gassed.
What about you, Mr. Nichols?
Well, when I started, there was no union at all. If you talk union, well, you didn't have a job. After the war, they started organizing in about 1920. Then there was a strike in 1922. After a couple years, they went back to work non-union.
Mr. Losh, do you recall that period?
Yes, I was a union before the strike started in 1922. We got this union back in the late 1930s, and they gave us raises. I was the vice president of the union for a long time, and I would hold the meetings and write the minutes.
Reverend Barmer, can you add anything on the labor and union issues?
I remember the 1922 strike and the train wreck. They had men sitting in a coach on a sidetrack waiting on the train that would take them down to Parsons and put them in jail. The whole coach wrecked going down the mountain. Those men, they were arrested for doing nothing. Now, during the 20s, after the strike failed, I think we got $1.04 or 3 cents a loaded car. That loaded car used to bring us $1.22. They weren't running regular either. A bunch of men went to the superintendent and said, if you can give us everyday work, we take a cut, see? And they told everybody to do it. Them taking that cut dropped the pay down to 80 cents a car. It never did come back up, even after the men unionized. We had to start organizing. You see why.
Are any of you able to tell me about company houses and company stores? Mr. Lodge?
A couple hundred people used to live here in the company housing. The company built them to be double-room houses and rented them for $10 per month, what they deducted from your pay. They used to evict people during the strikes for not working. The company would just set them out on the road. After the company sold out, they sold the houses to a real estate company out of Pittsburgh in the late 1940s.
What about you, Reverend Barmer?
I never lived in a company town. I've been in my house for 30 years. Beacon Coal had a company store. If you wanted to buy, you bought. If you didn't, I never heard of the company trying to force any of the men to buy there.
Can any of you speak to community life?
Well, we had a family doctor through the company. We paid $2 a month, whether you used him or not. It was deducted from your pay, just like the rent. There was a hospital in Davis that we would go to if somebody got hurt in the mines, and there were quite a few accidents here. The company was very involved in how the town was run. They tried to influence our decisions in elections. They always favored the Republican candidates, but most of the workers here were Democrats. The teachers in the schools were good. The wooden schoolhouse taught up to 8th grade and had about 6 teachers and a principal. They held church in the schoolhouse too, mostly Catholic, Methodist, and Presbyterian services.
Great. Thank you to each of you.
Okay, let's bring up our next panel. Carl Perkins, Margaret Perkins, Frank Lenchek, and Frank Colabrese.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Matthew Powell. I'm a history student at WVU. Now, let's meet our final panel today, starting with Mr. Carl Perkins and Mrs. Margaret Perkins. Then we'll talk with Mr. Frank Lenchek and Mr. Frank Colabrese. Mr. Colabrese, let's start with you.
Okay, that's Calabrese.
Colabrese. Thank you.
I'm originally from Italy and came to the United States in 1905. My father laid pipeline for Philadelphia Gas Company, but had friends in Douglas who mined. I had 5 siblings and raised 9 children of my own here. I started working in the mines when I was 11 years old. I attended night school so I could work and stay in school. My mom was sick, so I got married young, and my wife raised our family and my father's family too.
I am Frank Lensek. I came to Thomas on November 2, 1911. I lived down on Front Street. I came from a town in Yugoslavia. I was 19.
My name is Carl Perkins, and this is my wife, Margaret. I was born in Clarksburg. I started mining when I was 14, and I've never really done anything else but mining. My father was a miner, too. He was from Canada. He came from Pennsylvania to work in the woods. He was driving logs down the Cheat River for the Thompson Lumber Company, and he wound up here. So he learned to be a miner, but he also kept working in the woods, and he'd drive logs when the mines weren't running.
Well, Mr. Colabrese, can you tell me a little bit about how it was when you were working in the mines?
Yeah, I lied about my age. I told them I was 14 so they'd hire me and I could help my father after our house burned down. I was paid about 50 cents per 2-ton car that I loaded. I had to pay the company for our own powder and tools, including any sharpening from the blacksmith. They started using more machines in the mines after World War II, and I worked for 50 years and retired when I was 61, after the mine had finished out in 1955. Some strip mining jobs went in, and they let sulfur come out, and it ruined the stream. It looks like there's rust in the water now, and there's no more fish.
Mr. Lenchek, how about you?
I knew my neighbor back home, Ivankik, had come to Thomas before me. When I arrived, he invited me to come into his home and helped me get a job. He and I worked together loading coal. When I first arrived, the work was bad. Too many people were here. We could only work 2 or 3 days, and some days you couldn't get any cars to load. Married men were given most of the work, so the single men like me went somewhere else. I went to a mine in Maryland. Then in 1912 or 1913, my boss said to us, "Boys, I like you, but you've got to get another job. All single men are fired." We looked for a job in Pennsylvania. The mine manager said he would hire us if someone was killed in the mines that day. But nobody was. I decided to come back to Thomas. It was hard to find work, but eventually I got a job in the mines again here. I loaded coal.
Well, Mr. Perkins, what about you?
I started working in the mines when I was 14. I was chasing carts, empty carts down in the mine in Copeton. After that, then I started working with my father, digging coal, and we worked together. My brother worked in the mine too. He was a pick miner and worked with the mules. Most of the miners we worked with were Italian or Polish.
Huh. Well, another matter I want to ask about is what you recall of labor issues and strikes, Mr. Lenchek.
After 1916, the Union came to Thomas. There was a mine explosion that killed 16 men. Each of the 2 undertakers carried out 8 men. After that, we tried to unionize. Before that, we barely made enough to get by. My board was $16 a month, but I only made $14. After the union came up, we got a big haul. After a 3 or 4 day strike, we won a raise of 6 cents a car. At that time, we were getting about 3 cars a day. We ended up getting 3 raises in 2 months. We started getting even more work in 1917. They wanted us to load as much as we could. I would load 12 cars, 2 tons each. Sure, I got lots of coal. They broke the union in both 1916 and 1922. On February 15, 1922, we went on strike. Some people started to go back to work, so we picketed. They had the police at the mines with guns telling us to get away. Then they started arresting people. They loaded strikers onto a train and it ran over a hill, killing a man. Lots of people got hurt, you see.
Mrs. Perkins, are you able to add anything about the unionization?
They used evictions a lot at that time. My sister was evicted in 22. They'd give you so many days, and that was it. If you didn't get out, they'd put you out on the street. Eventually, men just had to get back to work. There was nothing else they could do. A lot of our young people left.
That's right. They broke the union then, but it reorganized. Lots of us miners, we paid our dues in secret after 1922. If they found out, you'd be out of a job. When did that union come in, Margaret?
It was sometime during the Roosevelt administration, just after they passed that law that made it legal to join a union. During that time, they couldn't fire you for joining a union. They couldn't prevent it. Before that, they'd fire you or worse if you were union.
Some of you have mentioned about company houses and rent. What do you recall about that?
Well, there were about 130 double houses in the town owned by the company. We paid $3 rent, but then they raised it to $10. We had to pay for water, but there were no bathrooms in the houses either.
All these houses on this street were company homes. They deducted $9 a month from his paycheck for our rent. Each house had 2 families. They were split down the middle with 2 front doors. Then, in 1946, they started selling the homes through a real estate agency. We had been paying rent for many years, but we still had to pay if we wanted to stay in the home that we lived in.
What can you tell me about just regular daily life?
Well, there was a 4-room schoolhouse in town, and there were also a few churches. The main church was a Protestant, but there were Roman Catholic services in Thomas. There used to be 4 trains a day, traveled between Thomas and Douglas every day before the mines started closing. I opened my own business here in 1913, a barber shop. I would work as a barber in the evenings after I finished my shift in the mine. I've run it now for 54 years in the same place. We had some baseball teams here too in Douglas, and we all got along just fine. We made a big baseball diamond out here to play on.
I remember that there were many of us Slovenians back then. We had 2 big lodges, mostly young people, about 100 of us. It's all gone now.
Well, I remember that Thomas was a town, not just a company town. There was independent businessmen and other people who were part of the town. They had a bank, they had a hotel. The attitude was, we were going to stick together. They wanted schools, they wanted the children educated, that sort of thing. They wanted to make something, and somehow they managed to build something like that. Well, a lot of towns, a lot of mining towns, you didn't get anything like that.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. I want to thank each of you for allowing me to interview you. This is a wonderful contribution to keeping our history alive, so thank you.
We better thank our cast, because let's get the cast to come up here. Come on. Come on up. Gorby? We're cool. All right. Hal Gorby was, stand up one, a little hand for Hal Gorby, who got us all these tapes. Thank you, my friend. Cheers, cheers, cheers. You guys were fabulous. We'll remember you and your characters so much. All right, anything else?
Sign up for the Heritage Center on the table and go view all the displays.
And thank you so much for coming. This was great. Thanks a lot. It has been an honor to help tell the early mining families' stories. Thanks for watching this program.